Howdy, everyone, and welcome back to the Sanctified Podcast. And today, I want to talk about the Japanese martyrs. Now, I came across these when I was looking for a new saint to discuss, and I came across Saint Leo Karasuma, and I couldn't find a whole lot about him other than a reference to the Martyrs of Japan. So I dug into that a little bit and found the story pretty interesting, so I want to share it with you. The saint that I could find the most information about within the Martyrs of Japan is Saint Paul Miki. So I'll go into his life a little bit, and then we'll go into the Martyrs of Japan and talk about a few of the other saints that are included in that group. All right, so I'll start with St. Paul Miki's story. And he was born in 1564. He died in 1597. He was born into a fairly well-to-do family in Japan, and it is believed that his father was a very successful military leader, though I couldn't find a whole lot of detail discussing exactly what his father did. He's just described as a very respected samurai. And this family lived near Osaka, and they became Christian when Miki's whole family converted when he was just a child. He joined the Jesuit seminary in Azuki when he was 20, and then he became a Jesuit himself 2 years later. He is said to have been a rather eloquent speaker, and he converted many to the faith as a result. This is the reason he was captured and ultimately executed, though. So for the first about half of Paul Miki's life, the leader of Japan, Oda Nobunaga, had no quarrel with Christianity. In fact, he thought that it could be used as a tool, a way to counter the Buddhist monks that were growing in numbers in Japan. Nobunaga even felt that he could use it to open trade with other nations. So it was almost supported in a way, but not directly. However, the next ruler held a very different sentiment. Toyotomi Hideyoshi felt that Christianity was a threat and a religion of foreigners. So he banished all foreign ministry, so not just Christianity, but every outside religion in 1587, but didn't really persecute anybody for practicing any religion until 1596. Now, if you're like me, you're probably wondering, why did he not care for the first 10 years? And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I got to go after these people. And so I did a little bit of research, and I found out that it's because there was a Spanish shipwreck that was off the coast of Japan. And honestly, it was just a recipe for disaster when it all started. So there was a ship that was sailing along the coast. It needed repairs. It wasn't totally a shipwreck yet, but it wasn't ready to go on the open ocean. So they asked to come into port to get some repairs, get some supplies. The local ruler was like, yeah, I'll help you out. And he kept up that facade and led them into a bay where they could supposedly get what they needed. However, he had his own ships go across a shallow bar that the larger ship could not make it across, and so it ran aground and was a total wreck at that point. And as a wreck, the leader was like, hey, all that stuff is part of a shipwreck, so I can take it for myself now. And as you can imagine, that didn't really sit too well with the captain and crew. So this leader then goes and brags about his awesome haul from this ship to Hideyoshi. And then the captain and crew with the translator went to Hideyoshi to try and get their stuff back. You guys basically stole this from us. We'd like it back, please. And during that, one of Hideyoshi's servants, who was involved in the negotiation process, asked the Spanish sailors how Spain conquered the globe. And the crew mentioned that Christianity was a very invaluable asset in this journey. Now, I say it like that because to them it was a journey. Christianity was just a part of the journey. It wasn't like a weapon in their conquering and their expansion. But the Hideyoshi didn't quite see it that way. He took it, or at least his translators portrayed it, that these sailors intentionally shipwrecked to bring Christianity to Japan, convert everybody, and ultimately take over Japan. Now, there isn't an exact translation or manuscript of what was said during this discussion between the ship's crew and Hideyoshi, but it ultimately led to Hideyoshi declaring all priests and laymen for Christianity had to be arrested. And so that is what triggered Hideyoshi to really persecute foreign religions 10 years after he implemented the law, and what ultimately led to Paul Miki's arrest, along with the other Japanese martyrs. So it didn't matter that Miki was a native to Japan, nor did his family's history and service to Japan matter at all. They were Christian, and so they were deemed an enemy. Miki was arrested along with several others, and they were escorted on foot to Nagasaki. Along with Miki were James Kasai and John DeGoto. Kasai just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. When police went for Miki, Kasai was in the same village, and they took him too. Though he was educated to be a Buddhist, he married a woman who converted him to Christianity, and so he was then baptized into the Christian faith. They had a son together, but then, almost ironically, she turned back to Buddhism and left James and their son high and dry. James left his young son with a Christian family so that he could move to Osaka and work for the Jesuits, where he eventually became a catechist and joined them as a brother. So yeah, James's story isn't the prettiest. It's a spur of the moment wedding, and both parents technically abandoned their kid. The mother abandoned the father and the son, and he left his son with another couple. But he felt it was the right thing to do at the time. And looking back on it, it might actually have been the right thing to do, because if he brought the kid with him, or if the kid stayed with James, that child very likely would have been executed with everybody else. Now for the other person who was arrested at this time, John DeGoto. John DeGoto was born into a Christian family on the Goto Archipelago, which sits between Japan and South Korea. He moved to Nagasaki to pursue his religion after Christians were persecuted on Goto, where he was from. And he then moved to the Jesuit community in Osaka and worked as a catechist there. And that's kind of it. He's got a pretty short story at this point. All three, so Goto, Kasai, and Miki, were arrested in December of 1596, and they were imprisoned in Miyako, which is Kyoto today, along with 6 other Franciscans and 15 tertiaries. And a tertiary is a member of the Franciscan Third Order. All were escorted to the public square, where it was announced that they would be executed on the cross. Before the group was executed to Nagasaki for the execution, they had the earlobe of their left ears cut as a sign of shame. Now, throughout this journey, the group was harassed and they were mocked by the crowds that watched them go by. However, Paul Miki didn't let this drain his spirit nor drain his faith. He preached to the crowds that were insulting them, encouraging them to find the one truth, as he is said to have phrased it, and to be redeemed. Finally, after about a month of marching, the group arrived in Nagasaki. Interestingly, the city already had many Christians, and this encouraged Miki and his comrades. Hideyoshi also planned to have the group executed on crosses, presumably in an attempt to scare people away from Christianity. But in reality, it had the opposite effect, because people were dying how Christ died. And it was a very powerful image that was being sent to other Christians in Japan, specifically other Christians in Nagasaki. Before the execution, Jesuit priests were permitted to minister to the prisoners, which struck me as kind of odd, because the point was to eliminate Christianity. But during this, Miki renewed his vows. Kasai and Goto both pronounced their first vows. So it was maybe Hideyoshi still had some respect for the men being citizens of Japan, but it's kind of just my interpretation. I don't see a reason where he would allow priests to come talk to them otherwise. On the morning of the execution, February 5th, 1597, the youngest of the group, 12 and 13-year-olds, found their small crosses in an almost excited manner. And they were excited because they were going to be killed in service to the Lord in the same way that he was killed. And all of the other adults were strapped to their crosses. Metal bands were fastened around their necks. And together they all sang out, "Praise the Lord, ye children of the Lord." And the Christians of the town heard this, and they joined in almost a sort of cheesy Hallmark movie moment, albeit a very, very dark moment. Each man was given one final chance to renounce Christ, and each one proudly said no. True to form, Miki delivered one final compelling speech before his execution. Miki said, "I did not come from the Philippines. I am a Japanese by birth and a brother of the Society of Jesus. I have committed no crime. The only reason I am condemned to die is that I have taught the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. I'm happy to die for such a cause and accept death as a great gift from my Lord. At this critical time, when you can rest assured that I will not try to deceive you, I want to stress and make it unmistakably clear that man can find no way to salvation other than the Christian way. The Christian law commands that we forgive our enemies and those who have wronged us. I must therefore say here that I forgive Hideyoshi and all who took part in my death. I do not hate Hideyoshi. I would rather have him and all of the Japanese become Christians." Now, just let that sink in a little bit. Like, he's about to be killed, and he's not directly been tortured, but he's been just disparaged and disgraced and insulted for the past couple of months. And he's just saying, like, I hope all of you will find what I have found, and I am sorry that you weren't able to find it sooner, or I'm sorry that I wasn't able to convince you sooner. As in, not so he would live, but so they wouldn't commit this sin of murder. There were samurai guards at each cross, and after they executed each martyr, they tried to keep back the other Christians in the crowd who pushed forward to grab pieces of the martyr's clothing and soak up their blood as relics. Because again, it was a very powerful moment in Japanese Christian history, and these people recognized it as such. Now, I'll mention all of the others in the Japanese martyrs, but I don't have a full story for all of them. Maybe we can do a second deeper dive into each of their stories if you're all interested in that. Let me know if you are in the comments below, or reach out to me at the Sanctified Podcast at proton.me. And now all the other martyrs were Martin of the Ascension, Pedro Bautista, Philip of Jesus, Francisco Blanco, Francisco of St. Michael, Gonçalves Garcia, Anthony Dinan, Bonaventure of Miyako, Cosmas Takeya, Francisco of Nagasaki, Francis Kichi, Gabriel de Duisco, Joaquim Sakakibara, John Kisaka, Leo Karasumaru, Louis Ibaraki, Matthias of Miyako, Michael Kozuki, Paul Ibaraki, Paul Suzuki, Peter Tsukijiro, Thomas Kozukai, and Thomas Zico. The whole group was beatified as martyrs, and they are collectively known as the Martyrs of Japan. They were beatified September 14th, 1627. They were canonized June 8th, 1862, and their feast day is February 6th, which is the day after they were executed. You probably know by now, but as always, I encourage discussion about this in the comments with those around you in any way, shape, or form you may wish. Just obviously keep it civilized. I don't want to get into some religious argument over this. It's just meant for discussion. Open your mind to the way that these men were living and what they felt. If you enjoyed listening to this, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. I have a channel on YouTube. I have a channel on several different podcasting services, Podbean, Amazon, Apple Music. You can, if there's a podcasting service, I'm probably on it. I'm trying to reach a broad audience here. Working to get on Spotify, so bear with me as we get there. But of course, as I said earlier, if you'd like me to go into a deeper dive on each of these martyrs, or if you have a saint that you think I should check out, feel free to email me at sanctifiedpodcast@proton.me, and I will do my best to get into all saint recommendations that get sent my way. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.